13th, I'm going to put in the chat here a link to the page that I'm going to speak to. We are in the middle of our current sprint, so the second of the 2-week sprint. We are currently focused on stability work, completing the block store, and planning work towards cost accounting and wallets. Actually, it's kind of a mixture of work and plan. I'll speak more about that in just a moment. We are still blocked on the release of our node 8.4, and I'll speak more about that when we get to Casper. If you're interested in see what we're working towards, you can look at the Mercury requirements with that link there. And as a reminder, there's still not yet a public testnet. There are known issues blocking that, and they are available in a view in Jira, and the link will take you there. So very quickly, update on the block store. I'm so excited to see that all the PRs for the block store are in. They are reviewed. Daniel is doing some work to address some comments and questions in those reviews, but we are in good shape to get that in. I'm very grateful for that work that the team has done together to get that done, and look forward to playing with that more in certainly our own development testnet, as well as getting it into community test as quickly as possible. As a reminder, the goal of the block store is that, if you are a node operator and you have been playing along with the blockchain for quite some time, and let's imagine that you 500 blocks, and for whatever reason you take your node down and you let the blockchain continue to grow without you for a bit of time, that when you bring your node back up, rather than having to catch up to the state of the blockchain, meaning to catch up to a state, let's imagine it's at 600 blocks now, you can rely on what you've saved in memory in the block store to support you picking up where you left off and then only having to catch up the difference. So that's a critical thing for stability, to be able to bring nodes up and down in an active testnet environment. So we have some bugs in consensus. If you've heard me talk about the assertion error, and our community testers know this one very well. We believed introduced a fix for that, which introduced what we thought was a new bug that we attempted to fix by we attempted a fix for it. It didn't fix it. And what we were concerned is that the implementation of multi-parent Casper was the cause. So last week we pulled out multi-parent Casper. As a reminder, this includes an early version of block merging last week, with the hope of seeing that it would resolve our invalid parent issue, and it did not. So there's a couple things at play and happening as we speak. One is an investigation and development of tests to more regularly be able to reproduce the invalid parents error. If you're a frequent node operator, you would either see this as an invalid parents error or a neglected invalid block, and you know that once you hit that neglected invalid block, you don't get to play anymore. There's no more proposing for you until you kill your node and try again. So that we're investigating that. Simultaneous to this, Kent, who had some concerns about the implementation of the constant time estimator in the multi-parent Casper, has taken that back to the drawing board and has write up on that and plans to share that proposal at the Casper stand up on Monday to see if it's on the right path to resolving some issues we saw with multi-parent Casper. So a lot going on in Casper right now, and kudos to the team for their support on that. Cost accounting, there's work in progress right now towards the implementation of a common cost accounting. And we were asked by the co-op last week to refocus and significantly prioritize the delivery of cost accounting and wallet in the next couple sprints, and we intend to do that. So we have used some time this week in the latter part of this sprint to really make sure that we have everything ticketed out and estimated for those two features, cost accounting and wallet, and to make sure that we have the right resources to cover all of that, to deliver those things as quickly and as accurately as possible. So that's what we've been doing. We did the work with the cost accounting team today. We did work with wallet team yesterday. And so we're looking forward to the start of next sprint being highly focused on both cost accounting and wallet. The node, Pavel's continued some work on some small fixes to address our out-of-memory error. These fixes are relatively minor compared to what the block and DAG store will provide, but they're worth getting done, and we note that they do contribute to out of memory. So nice work getting that done. The SRE team is finishing off some work on the performance test net and finishing off some work in our dev net, but also really preparing to launch a public test net. As if you recall from RCon 3, we launched that test net largely on the backbone of infrastructure provided by Pyrofex. So we're spending some time ramping up infrastructure on the co-op's resources to be able to support a public test net. Go into GitHub and look at what we're doing. Jira is another resource for you if you want to look up a specific feature such as wallet or cost accounting. You can see exactly what we're planning to do and how.
Is this an area we should be continually concerned about as the blockchain size grows and the number of comms that are awaiting completion grows as it gets busy, or is that well in hand? Is the team comfortable that the design approach will scale in the memory sense?
As I understand it today, we have implemented some, there are things in place now to help mitigate that risk. And those things being like for example, once you've added a block to your DAG, you can let go of the deploy, for example. So we're looking at opportunities to let go of things. We're also looking at ways to, when we talk about the block and DAG stores and how are we doing that to help reduce the risk of out of memory error. Specifically to your question, Ed, do we have it all in hand? I think it's still a work in progress as we continue, especially as we continue to see how the block store and the DAG store help better support and resolve the out-of-memory errors that we are seeing. But they're very much aware of it, and that's why I say it's a work in progress.
Okay, yeah, it's just one of these areas that is nagging to me.
Yeah, and it's important. You need your node to stay up and running. And
Kelly,
part of it.
Just to add a little tiny bit to what Kelly just said,
hey, Chris.
The block store work that just went in, prior to that, all those blocks and DAGs were stored in memory. So just contributing to the out of memory issue. So the block store work that got pushed in, those are on disk, and only what's needed in memory is pulled into memory.
Okay, got it. So a big issue addressed. Thanks, Chris. I didn't know that. And then Kelly,
the number of receives that are out there dependent upon garbage collection also to clear those out.
So yeah, I'm sorry, I've been speaking the whole time and I was muted. So Chris beat me to the punch, and I'm grateful. I'm glad we have more and more people who can speak to the design. So yeah, the whole point of the block store is that you only hold effectively what would be called a working set. The garbage collection is a separate issue, Jim, but in general, it's one thing that that's been pounded on for decades now. So it's not going to be, it's not really our problem. It's the problem of whatever VM we're sitting on top of, and we have to just make sure we use it in a reasonable fashion. But does that make sense to you? Do you understand that the issue has been largely that they're keeping everything in memory until they had a backing store? Yeah.
I think there's. I appreciate that. And on garbage collection, it seems like there are some unique things with garbage collections. If you put
each virtual machine has its own warts, and then there are particular. Yeah, exactly.
If you do a listen for data at name, how long is that listening active?
No, but that can be rolled off, right? If there's no. It doesn't have to remain in memory. It can be in the store. Yes, that's the whole point. Yeah.
Okay. And then Kelly or Chris, you're either one, or you're welcome to address this. So I assume the wallet work, if it's going to be complete in the next 2 sprints, that's the simpler wallet, and that multi-sig is not in that time frame. Is that correct? And is multi-sig on the Mercury list or off the Mercury list?
The design supports multi-sig. Whether or not we have a multi-sig actually written for testnet is probably likely no.
Right.
For mainnet, I think that's very achievable.
Okay. No, that's good. It just, the word complete seemed ambitious if it were a multi-sig client. Okay, thanks so much.
Okay, so any other questions for Kelly or Chris or anything on the dev update? All right, so we have some other exciting news. I think let's see, is Kate on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. So Kate, if you could just speak to what's happened with the books, where they are, and sort of the process that we've been undergoing, I think it would help people feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, hi everyone. I wanted to let you know that the co-op is still in the process of preparing the 2018 Q4 financial report. And we do understand that the original due date was January 20th. Some of the things the co-op has done in order to achieve this report is we've engaged Hunt Jackson to provide quarterly financial reports. We're also working with a local bookkeeping firm called Ledger Pros, and they're going into our QuickBooks account file and helping us with journal entries. The finance team has also been meeting weekly to discuss the status. Like I mentioned, we do understand that this has been delayed, and I'd like everyone to understand that the project has been huge. Hunt Jackson required us to complete a fully reconciled set of books for the entire year of 2018 just to do the Q4 report. So the finance team has been buried in looking at our Bitcoin, our ETH, our ROC, our US dollars, and AMP reconciliation spreadsheets, manually uploading those records into QuickBooks and reconciling the QuickBooks file, which is required by Hunt Jackson to do the report. So all of this coincided with some personnel changes in Treasury. There's resources constraints with not having a full-time treasurer or bookkeeper in-house. We've also had some competing priorities with other mandatory tax filings due at the top of the 2019 year and just general financial operations. So all of that said, it's a very big undertaking. We are making progress. We have the books reconciled almost to completion. We are still waiting on our bookkeeping firm to help adjust a couple entries. After that, I plan to review the accounting reports, and at that point, I think we'll be able to send it to Hunt Jackson. So I'm hoping that by the end of this week, we'll be able to send our QuickBooks file to Hunt Jackson so they can go in and do what they need to do to deliver the Q4 reports.
So what exactly are the entries that Ledger Pro is looking at?
I noticed when I was doing my final review that some of the payroll taxes weren't listed in the correct account in QuickBooks. And noticed that the numbers looked a little bit off. So I've asked them to double check and make sure that the taxes that the co-op is paying for payroll tax are tagged to the correct account in QuickBooks.
I see. And how long would that normally take?
It shouldn't take long. I mean, I don't know the contact at Ledger Pro. I'm not sure if she's working due to weather conditions. So I've reached out a couple times. I'll try reaching out again later today. I pinged her this morning, and I haven't heard back.
Okay, all right. So essentially, we're waiting on them to reconcile the right account for an entry regarding payroll accounting, and then it goes to Hunt Jackson. Is that correct?
Yeah. So after Ledger Pro does their this final payroll journal entry, then I'm going to check QuickBooks, make sure I don't see anything that looks off, I don't think that will be the case because we've been looking at this for several weeks now. And at that point, I'll email Hunt Jackson and let them know that QuickBooks is ready for them.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was confused because I saw the email thread between you and Hunt Jackson, and I had the understanding that you had already sent the books to Hunt Jackson, but I think you had, maybe after that email thread, you discovered the payroll tax issue, or I don't know what happened there. But I remember there was a kind of woohoo email that the books were balanced for the entire 2018, and you were ready to send them the books.
I indicated that the cryptocurrency was fully reconciled, but the US dollars, which is what payroll taxes are paid in, was not totally complete.
Okay, well, that's good to know. It helps me be a little bit more on top of things. Good.
Has Hunt Jackson committed to a timeline? Once they receive the books, their delivery timeline is?
I believe.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
No, I mean, we were led to believe before that it was a matter of days, but now we're hearing it's possibly 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, that's been my experience. I mean, days is never the case with farms like this.
Yeah, although I'm not exactly sure what goes into it. Once they've received QuickBooks and fully reconciled books, then the compilation is just right. Yeah.
Any thought on releasing a preliminary, obviously not approved by Hunt Jackson report, at least on four?
You absolutely read our next step, which is that's what we're going to do. So since we do have this delay, we're going to, as soon as it comes back from Ledger Pro, we'll release an intermediate result. So that should be out as soon as Ledger Pro gets back to us on this one entry, then we will we'll release a draft report, and then the Hunt Jackson will be the final report.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Kate. I really appreciate it. And as always, it's always about transparency. I know it's been a lot of work to get the books fully reconciled, and so I appreciate all the effort. And
No problem.
Any questions from the community? Okay, so with that, moving right along on some business side, we have Kenny, who is here to make an announcement. I don't want to steal any thunder, but yeah, but we actually have some pretty good developments here. Kenny, you wanna take sort of
Sure.
let the community know what's going on?
Right. So as some of you may have seen, I posted an open letter to the RChain Reddit, just to let everybody know that I had informed the board of directors beforehand, and I communicated with them on the best course forward, and so they suggested I post this letter, and so I went ahead and did that. But it's basically just announcing my resignation from the board and from my employee status in the co-op. I have some other opportunities that were very were aligning quite right for me personally. So this move is sort of bittersweet. I'm pursuing other opportunities, but also I think the co-op has been a real learning experience for me and a real growing experience. So I do thank everybody sincerely for everything that everything that we've brought together, and I still think there's amazing work left to be done, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that all comes together in the near future.
Thank you very much, Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
We really appreciate all the work you've done. I know you put in long, hard hours in your role and going above and beyond so many times. With respect to that, I think, one of the things as Kenny sort of stepped out, we had another candidate step in. We've been engaged with Ravi Srinivasu for several weeks now, and Ravi is very seriously considering a position of interim COO. Ravi just left his position as a global product manager of NTT, and has a lot of contacts within the telecommunications space and in the Bay Area. And Ravi has been instrumental in setting up some considerable opportunities for enterprise pilot projects already before considering this role. He'll be flying out to Seattle on Tuesday to meet with some of the Seattle team. Before that, we expect him to meet with the team from San Francisco, and Ravi has already met most of the board. So we're very excited about the possibility of engaging Ravi in this role. And yeah, it's one chapter completes and one chapter begins. So very, it's bittersweet feelings, I think is the right phrase here. Thank you, Kenny, and we're looking forward to the next phase. As I said before, the co-op is looking at 2019 as the year that we engage several enterprise pilots. So this feels like a very fortuitous move, a fortuitous development for the cooperative. I'm very happy to see us move in this direction. Any questions about that? Lively group. Okay, so
I guess the question would be, who's assuming his role in governance?
So that's a good question, and we'll be exploring that. Potentially that could be a role for Ravi, or it could be a role for one of the board members. We're still sort of thinking that through, and any advice in the community is most welcome.
Well, Greg, it sounds very exciting.
Oh, thank you. Who was that?
It's Nora.
Oh, Nora. Cheers. Yeah. No, I'm actually, I think it all kind of lined up, and it was, the interesting thing is it was all independent, right? We had no, each one of these things was sort of our engagement with Ravi. We knew that Ravi wanted, has been actively engaged on behalf of the co-op. We didn't know quite, what the right vehicle for that engagement would be. And yeah, anyway, I think this turns out to be quite a, it's the old co-op magic working. Anyway, so we have an issue in front of the community that based on the passing of IOB4, we really need to take a look at together as a community. So I can say with no reservation that without exception, every fund that we have talked to in the last several months has asked us, is there an equity play with the co-op? And we have to say, no, there isn't. The co-op doesn't have shares in the same way that a normal US corporation has shares. And that has been, a bit of a stumbling block or an obstacle for the co-op to overcome as a part of raising additional funds. And in the last 5 days, we've been in discussion with 3 funds, and I can say that all of them have had significant interest in RChain. And in fact, that's why they came to the table. And what has come about is one of the funds actually mentioned and said, well, what about RChain as an equity vehicle? So I took the idea to the board yesterday, and the board has directed me in no uncertain terms, to go and investigate RSong as an equity vehicle. So the rough sketch of such a play would be that the co-op incorporates RSong as a wholly owned subsidiary, and that provides an equity vehicle for investors. RSong would then pursue actively the development of a music service, and that's the economic vehicle that the investors would be participating in. But of course, it can't do that on its own. It needs the platform, and so that would be a means by which funding can also come into the co-op. Now, because of IOB4, we are required to let the community know about these kinds of developments and to get feedback from the community about these kinds of developments. So as a part of, doing diligence on this idea, I'm required to go to the community and say, hey, well, what do you guys think about this? The board is quite serious. They actually put together a directive for the executive yesterday, and I'm essentially following up on that directive. So I'd like to open it up for some discussion here, and also for some period of time in a venue to be a venue based in Discord with a good clear time frame around it, and I'll be posting that in the not too distant future, like today or tomorrow. But I did want to get some interaction here on this call to see what people think.
I think it's a great opportunity. I would like to see the co-op retain 51% ownership if that's possible.
Oh, of course. Yeah, there's the total arrangement in terms of ownership is a separate discussion, and we want to make sure that as the people who are have fiduciary obligations to the co-op, that we do the best we can for the membership. But to me, this represents a fairly significant opportunity, because it solves the equity problem, and at the same time provides a way forward for investment funds that are separate from any flow of sales or other things that are currently underway.
Greg, do the potential investors understand that the funding would be used both for furthering RSong along as well as the RChain platform itself?
Yes, of course. So it's a natural question to ask in today's business climate, but within the context of the co-op, we do our level best to practice what we preach. So radical transparency here.
This is Fabian. I'll just chime in and say that I'm really excited about the possibility that funding will come in through the RSong project. I mean, the basic fact remains that we have a handful of incredibly advanced technical assets that are available to us, and as we're taking steps towards bridging them together, we have a valuable asset in our hands to be able to monetize. So it's very exciting that we're able to create this opportunity for the co-op, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the story evolves in the coming weeks. As one, we develop the platform, and two, we walk through the process of seeing how these opportunities will empower us in the future.
Absolutely, and I know that we had a discussion yesterday, and there were some people who are kind of worried about talking to the community about this particular vehicle. I mean, a lot of a lot of those fears and concerns were completely taken out of my hand because I was directed by the board to do something. But in this, I do understand that there has been some sensitivity in the community around, you know, our song, and we definitely have history there. But I think, you know, it's always good to be able to take something that has, you know, been a source of challenge and make something out of it. So if this could turn into a vehicle by which the co-op can get investment dollars, or you know, I think it feels like the right move.
Hey everybody, this is Ned, and yeah, I want to chime in. I think it's brilliant. You know, anytime, as Greg said, we talk to investors.
Ned, I can't hear Ned. Can anyone else hear Ned?
Hey, Ned, we can't hear you. Can you adjust your mic?
I'm on my mobile device. Is that any better?
No.
No. Okay. Oh, I know. Is that any better?
Shazam, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's the microphone's to my Bluetooth device, which is in my glove compartment. Anyway, I just wanted to chime in that I think it's brilliant. Every time, as Greg said, I just want to reiterate, you know, we talk to investors. The big issue is, you know, what's the equity play? And so, you know, this is really a great way to take this amazing asset that Kayvon has, you know, heretofore, you know, developed. And, you know, now working with Fabian, we're working to, you know, take it to the next level. And, you know, it's really exciting to be able to monetize this great work and save, you know, RChain, you know, monetarily with a really great product that, you know, you know, in a few weeks I've been working with Fabian now, you know, the world is, musicians are waiting for this kind of app. So I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of demand going forward. So anyway, I just wanted to say, you know, I'm really excited about this.
Well, thank you for that. And I think you touched on a point that has really been very much in the forefront of my mind, which is we had the Bitfury announcement, we had the Peer Tracks announcement, we had OMI, we had the Ripple announcement. So all of these seem to suggest that the market is recognizing the real value of connecting music to blockchain. I think it's always recognized it from the beginning with Ujo Music and Imogen Heap and a lot of other opportunities. But you know, we're now seeing second wave offerings that are in this space, and they all point to that this is kind of the right direction. And of course, it lines up with our strategy of high volume, low risk kinds of markets. So you know, it feels directionally correct. But we do need, you know, so we'll put together a venue whereby the community can give us formal feedback on this idea as a part of the decision making process that the board is facing. Yeah, looking forward to completing the process and you know, hopefully getting funds into the co-op, additional funds coming into the co-op from this angle. Any other questions, comments about this?
Yeah, I would like to comment one thing. So literally just this morning, the first line back from a group of investors was, what is going on with equity? Like literally the first line in the email. So this has to be done, in my opinion, unless someone has an alternative. What is the speed at which we can get this done? I'm not trying to rush anything through, but to get everyone on a call with the community otherwise and just get this pumped out so we can go back to the table with the people that we have sidelined at the moment.
Yeah, so we absolutely, I mean, getting the thing incorporated is really just a matter of a couple of days. Getting it incorporated so that the flow structure is correct might take a little bit longer, but we're not talking weeks. We're talking days. So the biggest thing, of course, is to set up a discourse with the community, and I think that we can provide the venue for that, by tomorrow, end of day tomorrow, and collect commentary until Monday, and then that gives the board enough information to make a decision.
I have some question about this opportunity.
Yes.
How should COPE deal with the immersion license? Will it be sub-licensed to our song entity and stay in the COPE still owns license, or how will this be handled?
So that's a good question. It's something I would be happy to speak to in a private conversation, but not on something that goes out on YouTube.
Sure.
More than happy to have a private call with all those who are concerned. We can set that up for this week to talk about the licensing issues.
Would be great.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah, this is HJ.
Hey, HJ. How are you?
I'm fine, yeah, thank you.
Good.
I have a question about what's going to happen to the rock.
Okay. So what's your question about what's going to happen to the rock?
Does this new organization have the right to introduce a new coin?
You're talking about RSong? Have an opportunity to introduce a new coin? Yeah, but the coin would be on the RChain platform. Not an ERC20 token. It would be a token that runs on top of the RChain network.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for answering. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, so I've been pretty straightforward with people about the kind of thing that I would like to see happen. I think it's worth recounting it here. We have a little bit of time. The economic architecture of the music industry is one that I would like to see. The next version of that, I would like to see that hammered out between the artists and the listeners, because the distribution infrastructure at this point is really should not be the driving force for the economics. The artists and the listeners should be the primary or dominant driving forces. And there are a lot of considerations, a lot of different options that are available. So if you think about it, the way RSong itself is architected, and this is very much in support of other kinds of digital asset management systems. It's set up so that there's a unit of measure. In this case, it's the playback of a particular audio content, a song, for example. And that unit of playback is then fractionated amongst, or divided amongst the contributors who are recognized as contributors in the metadata. Now, playback, you can't take a fraction of a playback of a tiny human to the coffee shop and say, "Hey, I'll give you this for a cup of coffee." So there has to be some conversion to some kind of asset that can ultimately result in healthy exchange for other kinds of goods and services. Now, there's a natural, simple solution at one end of the spectrum. So at one end of the spectrum, that those playbacks are then monetized. They're priced in terms of the rev, and then the rev can be converted into some kind of fiat for artists and contributors to be able to enjoy the fruits of their labor, literally.
So that's one end of the spectrum, right? It's just that Rev is the token of choice for that community. And that has certain advantages. It's very simple, right? They don't have to do anything additional. They don't have to manage anything. They don't have to explain anything to people apart from what's already being explained about RChain and the Rev and everything else. So it's one end of the spectrum that sort of is a kind of path of least resistance. But it also leaves a lot of value on the table. So if you look at our song, one of the things you see is that one of the contributors for the first few tracks was the California Guitar Trio. Now, Bert Lambs, who's one of the trio, he's not only a gifted composer and an astonishing performer, he's also a really fantastic teacher. He can deliver so much information in such a short period of time. And I know this personally because I've worked with Bert. So there's one thing that the California Guitar Trio could offer that no one else in the world could offer, right? And that's a guitar lesson with Bert Lambs. So if a California Guitar Trio were to mint their own token, the CGT, then that could be exchanged for the usual kinds of things, including fiat currency or other goods and services. But it could be the only token that would get you a guitar lesson with Bert Lambs, as an example. So at the far end of that spectrum, every artist has their own token, and that feels a little bit too complex. It's a very, very difficult landscape to navigate. But there's probably a sweet spot somewhere in the middle where there are some differentiated tokens that are artist specific, or maybe they're label specific or distributor specific.
I'm terribly sorry, but can we pass to the other items? We have 15 minutes
course.
left.
Yeah, of course. I'll just finish this because HJ asked the question, so I want to give it its due. So what we want to engineer is a conversation. We want to engineer a conversation amongst the artists and amongst the listeners to set up their own token economics, so they decide how that's best going to work for them. And that's very much the kind of thing that we'd like to see across a lot of different markets, not just music, but potentially for fine art, the digital prints of fine art, and many other kinds of markets. So in that regard, to answer HJ's question, it makes a lot of sense to have a platform like RChain provide the ability for our song to create the right kind and number of tokens to support that economic vehicle. So we can move on, but I did want to give HJ always asks really interesting questions, and if you dig a little deeper, there's always something behind them that's worthy of a more detailed response. Okay. So if there are other items from the community, now would be the time to speak to them.
Can we have an update on Pythia? Community noticed that they start selling tokens.
Yes, we are in active legal negotiation with Pythia, and I cannot say anything in public. There's not much I can say about Pythia.
We cannot do anything from preventing their selling and somehow get their tokens back, right? So
we're in the process of an active legal negotiation. I can't I cannot speak to the strategy that we're taking. I can have a private conversation with you or with those people who are interested, as I have done in the last several days with many community members, but I can't speak to that in public. I think I've said this on a lot of channels over the last several weeks. Any other questions from the community?
I'm curious, since this comes up a lot, Greg, I'm wondering if maybe a portion of this meeting could be closed door so that we would have the opportunity to have that conversation and not be recorded.
I agree.
I'm happy to do that. I don't know if we're agile enough to do that right this moment, but we could certainly set that up. So we could set it up so that there's a closed door piece of this at the end of the meeting. Yeah, that's fine. We can do that next week. And in between, I'm happy to have a closed door meeting and have that set up. The reason we can't do it right here and now is because I have to have a mechanism whereby the people who are participating in the closed session express in a legally binding way that they understand that it is closed session and that they are on the hook if information comes out via them. Cool. Any other questions or comments from the community on anything that we talked about so far, or anything that's happening currently? Going once.
I'll just, this is Fabian. I'll just make a quick comment, and I just want to acknowledge Kenny publicly for everything that he's done for RChain from the beginning. And I'll miss his presence here and the work that he's put in. And I look forward to seeing how things evolve with the co-op with Robbie. So, but thank you, Kenny, for all of your time and your efforts.
Yeah, thanks, Fabian. And of course, I'm still a member, so these are for members, so I will still be around.
Good.
Absolutely. Good. And yeah, Kenny's made a promise not to be a stranger, and we're going to hold him to that.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we have.
Yeah, I'd like to second that, Kenny. Thanks for all the work you've done.
Yeah, you're amazing, Kenny. I'm glad that you'll still be around.
Thanks.
Very good. All right, folks, thank you so much. We can yield back about 10 minutes to the community, and looking forward to next week.